always receiving Nur's weekly Quran study. We're continuing to study Surah together. And without further delay, I'd like to pass the microphone to Sister Yamina. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى أصحابه وأهله وأجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So we're continuing with Surah Al-Ra'd, inshallah. 2 weeks ago, we were reflecting on the 5th ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd. And the 5th was a very interesting ayah, actually. It says, وَإِن تَعْجَبْ فَعَجَبٌ قَوْلُهُمْ أَإِذَا كُنَّا تُرَابًا أَإِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ أولئك الذين كفروا بربهم وأولئك الأغلال في أعناقهم أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. And if you are surprised, then what is more surprising is they're saying, how can it be that when we are dust, we will be created anew? They're the ones who deny their sustainer, and it's they who carry shackles around their necks. Such people are the companions of the fire, therein to abide. And we talked about the general meaning of this and how it was related to us. And this means that it's amazing that they don't see the rububiyyah activities all around them, although the evidence is made accessible to human observation. And this is what the previous ayat of this surah are talking about the ayat all around us. Isn't that amazing that they don't see the Rabb in action everywhere around them? They don't see the ayat, although these ayat have been made clear, as we are told in this surah, in one of the ayat in this surah. They've been made clear so that those, not everyone, those who reflect, those who think, can witness them, can see that there is a definite purpose in all what happens around us, in all phenomena, in all things, in all events, and that everything speaks of their Rabb, and that it is clear that we have a Rabb and He is taken care of. We are being taken care of. And my favorite example these days is just look at your breathing. How is it sustained? This is just amazing. So it says it's amazing because the mushrikun, and we said the mushrikun are not those who deny God. The mushrikun, at least themselves, they think they believe in God. They speak as though they believe in God. But in fact, they are at the level of not denying His existence. And why we know that? Because they deny His rububiyyah. And to actually confirm rububiyyah in everything is a long journey. If you remember in Surah Yusuf, it was being aware that every single thing is an ayah. Every single thing is created on purpose. When Yusuf a.s. was put in prison, he knew that he was put there for a purpose, that it was a rahmah, that he was being protected. Although apparently it looks that some people were throwing him there. So those people are throwing him there, but everything is happening according to a divine plan, according to divine will. And that's not an easy to figure out, to understand, but also something that we feel, something that is real in our life. It takes time, it takes prayer, it takes work It takes intention. We have to live intently and intentionally look around us and see if really things around us are signs, if really they have meaning, if really they are pointing to something beyond themselves. So it doesn't happen overnight by just learning, saying in the Quran and then carrying on our life without any further investigation. So the mushrik is the who is not aware, doesn't see the rububiyyah, every single being a phenomena. God for him is not Rabb. He's not the Rabb of every single cause and effect relationship, because we tend to give the events, we see them as an effect of some causes, and so we don't see beyond them. We don't look beyond them, as though the air and the earth and water could give life to a seed, as though we never stop. And why is that? Because we never stop and really think about it and really ponder and reflect. So that God is not Rabb. And of course, it's so when a mushrik does not thinks he believes God, he actually is not believing in uluhiyah as it is described in the either, because that kind of God is a God that started everything and then everything is carrying on its own. That's why here it's saying what is more amazing than this is that people refuse to believe in resurrection, individual resurrection. And in the beginning, remember, at least personally to me, it sounded like, shouldn't it be the other way around? Like, of course we believe in resurrection, but to believe that in every event is, seeing the rububiyyah in every event, seeing everything as an ayah is more difficult. But it's because we take it for granted. We just repeat resurrection, but these two things are very much related to each other. I cannot truly believe in resurrection unless I see everything as an ayah, which means I see that everything is being renewed again and again, all continuously. Everything is constantly created anew. Why? Because nothing can sustain itself or existence. Everything is in need of being sustained continuously, every instant, every here and now, including, for instance, my breathing. How can I possibly sustain it? I have no say, no control of it. Most of the time, I'm not even aware of it. Still, it's happening. It's going on. So this is a sign, this is an ayah, this is an evidence that it is being sustained. And we can think about not only our breathing, our blood cells are being cleansed, everything around us and in us is being sustained, this is being taken care of. Everything is therefore pointing to their sustainer, their Rabb. Those who are unaware of the ayat all around them, they are limited by their own delusions, by their own ghafla, by their own false beliefs about how they think the world is going on, is working. And so those false beliefs, those delusions, those false perception of reality, they carry with them, they become like shackles around their neck, it says in the ayah 5 of this Surah Al-Ra'd, around the neck. And so when you have shackle around your neck, you can't move your neck very much. You're very limited by what you believe in, and you can't see beyond that. And so the next area is even more enigmatic, like more intriguing, more mysterious, in the sense that it is still for me, it's not easy uh, to follow it, to follow where it is pointing to. ويستعجلونك بالسيئة قبل الحسنة وقد خلت من قبلهم المثلات وإن ربك لذو مغفرة للناس على ظلمهم وإن ربك لشديد العقاب. They ask you to hasten the evil rather than the good, although there are examples of punishment before them in the past. Your Rabb, your sustainer, is full of forgiveness for people for their wrongdoing, and your sustainer is also severe in retribution. Generally, the classical tafsirs, they explain this ayah as referring to the disbelievers, and the disbelievers here are challenging the Prophet ﷺ, and almost as like mocking him and asking him to bring on on them the punishment with which God threatens them. So when I looked at few tafsirs again, maybe I thought, okay, maybe there is something I'm missing. Because I thought, okay, fine. But remember, this is an ayah. And as such, it carries guidance from our Rabb, and it carries some good news to all of us at all times in every situation. So what is the guidance for me when I'm reading this ayah right now? So my challenge was to understand how this ayah is, my challenge is still to understand how this ayah is related to us here and now and always, and what guidance does it indicate? What is the message it's bringing to us? My first thought has been that someone can't genuinely wish for evil before good. Like the ayah is saying, they ask you to hasten the evil rather than the good. يستعجلونك بالسيئات قبل الحسنة, which is interesting. I mean, why would someone wish for evil before good? And maybe that's why it sounds like a challenge, like a defiance even. Because actually, you feel that they don't believe in the resurrection. They don't believe in the day of judgment. Because if they did, they wouldn't ask for, they would be not, I mean, it's not something that you don't easily ask for something that is bad for you. So if they're asking for it so easily, it means they don't really believe in it. And so they're asking, is there a way to defy the message that the Prophet ﷺ is bringing them? And this message seems to them very unlikely. They can't believe it because they don't believe in the resurrection. And they don't believe in the resurrection because they don't see that we are resurrected actually here. We were all babies, toddlers, kids, and now adults. We are being changed and created anew here in this world. It's not like we have to believe in something that we cannot even imagine. So the ayats exist here and now, but those ayats, if we don't look at them as ayats, if we're not aware of them, if we never stop and reflect on their meanings, then the very concept, the idea of being resurrected just seems too far-fetched. Or the idea of a day of judgment, like we are going to be accountable for our lives. It's my life. I do whatever I want with it, it seems. because I'm not even aware that even my breathing is a gift continuously, constantly. I am gifted with life. It's not my life. And what I do and say and all my actions affect so many other people, the world, other creatures in ways that I am unaware of. So when I claim that it's my life, I do whatever I want, it's very irresponsible, and it can, the result can be very harmful for myself and for others. It's very immature. But when, for the person who is in that state of complete unawareness, the other way seems like the resurrection, the day of judgment seems very unreal. And so that's why they can challenge or defy the message this way. There is in Surah Shura, which is chapter 42 in ayah 18, so 42:18, if you want to check it online. It says, يستعجل بها الذين لا يؤمنون بها والذين آمنوا مشفقون منها ويعلمون أنها الحق ألا إن الذين يمارون في الساعة لفي ضلال بعيد. Those who ask for a speedy advance, for its, they hasten for it, for the last hour, they are those who do not believe in it. Those who have believed, they stand in awe of it. الذين آمنوا مشفقون منها. They are in awe. They wouldn't dare to ask something like this. Not only because they are in awe, but because they believe everything happens according to divine timing. It happens when it is the right time, the right conditions, because we don't know, Allah knows, and we don't know. And they know where they stand. They stand in awe of their Rabb anyways. They stand in awe of His Rububiyyah anyway. So it says, those who do not believe, they hasten for its advent, for the advent of the last hour, whereas those who have believed, they stand in awe of it and know it to be the truth. وَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهَا الْحَقِّ. They know for sure, they have no doubt that it is al-haq, because we see the evidences here and now. Maybe continuously it's not clear, but after every season, you see everything changes around us. Every few years, you see even the population changes. Newborns, some people left the world. So this is going on in here. Spring, after winter, it's spring, and it's a new resurrection. Verily, they who call the last hour in question have indeed gone far astray. And again here, I'm carrying on with Surah Al-Shura in 42:19, the next ayah. It says, Allahu latifun bi'ibadihi yarzuqu man yasha' wa huwa al-qawiyyu al-aziz. Right after this, it says, God is most kind to his creatures. He provides sustenance for whomever he wills, for he alone is powerful, almighty. So after this ayah 18 of Surah Shura, when it says that those who do not believe in the last hour, they say, okay, bring the last hour then, since bring this punishment in this last hour if you are telling the truth. And right after it, what does it say? God is very kind. Allahu latifun bi'ibadihi. And the next ayah, 42:20, it says, من كان يريد حرث الآخرة نزد له في حرثه ومن كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤتيه منها وما له في الآخرة من نصيب. To him who desires a harvest in this life, in the life to come, we shall grant an increase in his harvest. Whereas to him who desires only a harvest in this world, we may give him something thereof, but he will have no share in the blessings of the life to come. It's like saying to us, it's up to you to choose. If you choose the hereafter, if you live, which means to choosing the hereafter is not only a claim, it's not only something that I say. It means if I live my life in this world, knowing that the world is a seedbed of akhirah, that everything is a sign pointing to alam al-ghaib, to the unseen, making known their maker, their Rabb to us, then you have fi dunya wal akhirah, this world and the hereafter come together. But if I want only this world, then maybe, because it depends sometime, because even if it's whatever I desire is given to me, when I'm stuck in the world only, it will never satisfy the human heart, because the human heart longs for eternity. So if you have the best things, the most beautiful life, but with that awareness deep inside, deep down, that all this is going to leave me, or I will leave them, I will die, everything, all the people that I love and care for, everything I care for has an end, and there is no hope for more, that in itself is going to spoil the joy, the enjoyment of those blessings while in this world. That's why it's saying we may give, like, because that's sunnatullah, that's the law of creation. You can't have the world on its own. It's been created, they are organically connected. Either it's dunya and akhirah, this world and the next, or you get this world, but it's not fully satisfying. And in the middle one, it says, Allahu latifun bi'ibadih, God is most kind. In this sixth surah of Surah Al-Ra'd, it says, وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَدُو مَغْفِرَةٍ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى ظُلْمِهِمْ. Your sustainer is full of forgiveness for people's wrongdoing. Subhanallah. Look at the rahmah, the emphasis. So we end up with a choice. This Surah Shura actually carries on, and it's very, very interesting. But since we are in following Surah Al-Ra'd, I'm coming back to Surah Al-Ra'd. I want to also remind us that in the previous ayah, these people are, the previous ayah meaning the fifth ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd, these people are described as disbelieving in resurrection, and so as a result they are deniers of their Rabb, even if they think that they believe in God. That's not really God. It's just a God that they think they believe in God. They delude themselves. As a result, they carry shackles around their neck. They are not free. They carry the burdens of their life. They shackle themselves with their own beliefs. And the second thing is, although we're talking about them, the disbelievers, the mushrikun, the message is for us. I am reading this ayah with the intention to learn something, to get some guidance for my own life, for myself, for me. However, it's easier at first to understand the situation out there, as though it were unrelated to me, like to see the signs, the ayat fil afaq, in the outer world, is easier at first, especially when I'm not fully aware. that it is related, that everything is related to me. Once I understand what's going on, then inshallah, with courage, takes lots of courage actually to bring it back to oneself, and the intention to remain aware and to be willing to find that part of us that has not fully surrendered to our Rabb, because otherwise I would be fully surrendered and I wouldn't need the guidance of the Quran. I wouldn't need the guidance of the creation ayat in the world. But if I'm here, there is more to learn. There is more to surrender to, because our Rabb is infinitely compassionate, infinitely knowing, infinitely powerful. So to realize that is not going to happen overnight. So to go through that process, I have to also be aware that I'm not fully surrendered. And then I read this ayah as a message of tarbiyah, as a message of rahmah, of good news and healing from my Rabb to me, and not leave it only as day. So it's easy to talk as about them, but the message eventually is for me. Because if I leave it only for them and never take it upon me to live with this guidance, then what's the point? I would have missed the point. So these people that are described in the first ayah actually of Surah Al-Ra'd, those who deny the message that the Prophet ﷺ, they can't believe in it, and those who are described at the end of Surah Yusuf. In their perception of the word, we said God is not Rabb. So if he's not Rabb, if things are not ayah, if things are not signs speaking about God and God's attributes, then God is distant from creation. It seems to, in that perception of the word, like he's distant from their daily lives. And so in their awareness, they imagine that what happens in the world is divorced from what they think God is. As though God had started everything, but right now every event is connected to its causes, has nothing to do with God, like not in their perception. So there God cannot, or does not at least, interfere in the world in the working of the world. So it's not really, do they say that he cannot or he doesn't? They don't think about it, because that's what the state of unawareness is. You just take things for granted without questioning their implications. So things are happening, that's it. All things have causes, immediate causes. The whole thing, the whole world, the whole creation has an explanation. God started it all. And no one thinks about the details and the implication of this worldview. And that's why they can ask for punishment to challenge the teachings of the Quran that the Prophet ﷺ brought them, because they don't believe it would really happen. Because for them, like, it's, come on, what's got to do with our daily life and everyday's events? Like, we may say, okay, I get it, God created everything, but like right now, it seems so far-fetched that every single event is under God's control. Like, why would it be under God's control? He created everything and that's it. Everything now, every single event is happening with a definite purpose. That seems like just too mind-boggling. If someone never stopped and reflected and actually witnessed one by one the signs, it's just not something that you can understand. And you remember in Surah Yusuf, alayhi salam, it took us, a while to stop because it seemed so far-fetched in the beginning that everything seemed so ugly, and it was saying, no, 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 these are all signs, everything is happening on purpose, and there is a plan. And at the end we saw that there was a plan, and it was not related to only Yusuf alayhi salam, but to the king, to his brothers, to his parents, to his family, to all the people of the region. It was a very a plan that was beyond anyone's thinking or imagination. But because we are not aware of our limitation, we are not aware that we don't really know. So when we don't like something, we say it's evil. When we like it, we say it's good. Whereas in the Quran it says, well, you don't know. You don't know what the implication, what the results of this is. How can you make claims like this and conclusions about things? So in this worldview, things are not signs. They are not ayat, which means they do not indicate a Rabb beyond everything. They're just there for themselves, no transcendent meaning, no purpose. This seems to me familiar. Unless we make that intention to be aware, most of the time we forget, and that's how we live, as if things are just happening. So to the unaware, the world and life are disconnected from God. To the aware, everything is an ayah, a sign indicating its maker. To the aware, being and goodness and existence are the signs of God's creativity, His rububiyyah, of His beautiful divine attributes. To the unaware, goodness, good things, don't remind them of God. Good things are not ayat, they are not signs from God. We just take them for granted, that's how they are. So as a sign, they ask for punishment, for something evil. It's a sayyi'ah, for bad, for evil. And it is, in the tafsir, they say they ask for punishment. Which of course they believe won't happen, but can you see that the sign that God exists is that God is in charge of everything? For them is the evil, not the good, because the good is taken for granted. And if or when some disaster, that we are made to not like happens in the world, they hasten to accuse God of injustice and cruelty. Well, some people openly say that. Some of us, the believers in God, if it's too hard for us, then we are like, come on, like, how can God put me in this situation? Isn't God merciful? You see, under this attitude, there is a doubt. I have not confirmed for myself. I have not witnessed in the world that God is Rahman and Rahim. He is compassionate. He is merciful. He is taking care of us. So when we say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, it means also Ashhadu an la razzaqa illallah. There is no provider but God. Ashhadu an la mu'ina illallah. I witness, I observe, I am witnessing. I cannot witness if I have not seen it, that there is no helper but God. Ashhadu an la rahmana illallah. I witness that there is no compassionate except God. And if I have not, that's why to become a Muslim, there is one condition, to proclaim the Shahada. And the Shahada is the witnessing. And yes, we say it, we proclaim it through words, but I can't be saying something that I do not believe in, something that I have not actually seen, that will be witnessing. Yeah. it would be lying, not witnessing. So the shahada, the meaning of the shahada is actually very profound. And when we are in trouble, when we don't like what's going around us, then we can check in our hearts, do I witness that to the goodness as signs to my Rabb? Because it seems like when something is bad happens, suddenly I say, where is God? Like the bad things reminds me of God. What about all the good things that happened before? They never reminded us of God? And that's why generally speaking, when we're talking about these people, let's talk about them as they, when everything is fine, they don't say all this prosperity, all life and everything are signs to God's compassion, to his generosity, to his munificence, to his benevolence. But when things don't go as they want, they're quick in accusing God of injustice. And some make this an excuse to deny his existence. And one of the most serious arguments against God's existence is the so-called problem of evil. It's one of the atheistic arguments that's been around the longest, and it has drawn the most attention. And according to this argument, the traditional conception of God as all-knowing, all-powerful, and benevolent, they claim it is flawed. Why? Because they say if God exists, then he knows how to, and he wants to, and has the power to prevent all suffering. And if such a God existed, then he would prevent all suffering. Since suffering is part of our world, then therefore it means he has not been, well, let's put it the other way around. It means that evil has not been prevented. Therefore, God is either he doesn't exist, or an all-knowing, all-powerful and benevolent God doesn't exist. And you see that this argument is something is wrong about it, because it's taking lots of things for granted. It's taking for granted, it's defining some things as suffering. It's defining some things as evil. For instance, death is evil in this understanding. Of course, if you don't believe in resurrection, in akhirah, in the hereafter, death is the end of everything for you, and therefore you say it's evil. Like, it's evil in your perception of the world, but are you questioning your own perception? No, you're taking it for granted that it is the fact. So remember, 101 Quranic study is the moment you start, you make the intention to become a conscious believer, a conscious seeker of the truth, a student of the Quran, then you make the intention and you question every time you perceive something, you have a statement about, a judgment about the world, about others, about anything. You don't take it for granted, because you know that you are limited, and you say, is this the fact, or is it how I am perceiving it? And that's why you are open to guidance. You need actually the guidance. You feel that, I don't know what's going on. Like, it seems like this to me, but is it true? Then I need a point of reference, a point of a furqan, something that helps me differentiate between what is my own delusion, my own false perception, and what is actually going on there. And that's when I realize and accept my limitation, my being very, very limited. I don't know what's going on. But here it's taking so many things for granted. It thinks it's no, whoever is saying this, they think that they know what's going on. And the perception of God, their understanding of God also is very interesting. Because if God exists, then he is the sole source of being. And so he creates everything. And if he creates everything, it means he creates me with the sense of wanting goodness and justice, and with the sense of disliking evil and injustice. That's part of his creation. But in this argument, the atheist talks about God while assuming himself to be completely independent and separate from God. And that God is not the God described in the Quran. So I'm not going to go into details, but what's interesting is this يستعجلون السيئة. Like you would think that human nature, we were created to prefer goodness and good and beauty and perfection over to bad things, to evil. But here they do the opposite, and it was for me very mysterious. What does this mean? But then I realized that we do this, like when everything is fine, it doesn't occur to us that this is a sign of our Rabb, and stop and think about all this goodness and all this beauty, unless it's something very beautiful like a sunset or something like that. But in our daily life, we tend to take them for granted. But when something that we don't like happen, immediately we see it as from God, and we start questioning his rahmah and his wisdom. So it seems to me that often or let me talk about myself, I find myself living my life just this way, as though I were independent and separate from my Rabb. That it's a feeling. It's not only information. Information becomes a knowing when we start feeling it, when it is our reality. It becomes our belief. It's not only an information, it becomes the way we think, the way we believe, the way we perceive things. When it becomes our perception, then our feelings and emotions change accordingly. I don't feel I am independent and separate from my Rabb anymore. But most of the time, it seems as though we were independent. Yes, God is there, God somewhere far from me. And how do I know this? How do we can check our disconnection? Is because look at our fears and our hopes. They are often connected to the conditions around us, and they change with the conditions around us. They are not connected to our Rabb. They are not connected to a constant, unchanging source. If the source was unchanging, then I wouldn't fear things around me. Emotions, but those emotions will immediately will be signs, ayat, will be messengers from my Rabb again. But when it's not like that way, that's it. They become things going out there in my world. The conditions around me will be the source. They will dictate my emotions. And those emotions are not signs. I'm stuck in them. And think also of the significance of the Day of Judgment. How many of us do we seriously reflect on the significance of the Day of Judgment? How often do we sit and actually take this seriously? There is a day of judgment. We are accountable. And forget about resurrection. Think about death. We know for sure that all of us, everyone, will die one day. Like, you don't have to be a believer in God or in the day of judgment or in resurrection. Sooner or later, all of us will die. But do we live life with this awareness? Do we live life with the certainty of meeting our Rabb? And think about it. How would the certainty in resurrection and the day of judgment affect our choices here and now? Would we be still doing the same things? Would we be still worrying about the same things? Would we have the same fears, the same hopes? What would we be doing if we lived with the certainty of the last day, with the certainty that we will meet our Rabb, with the certainty that this life has meaning and its value comes, how would I say that? It has value. Our life here has value only to the extent that it is the seedbed of Akhirah, only to the extent that it brings, it produces fruits, eternal fruits. Otherwise, in itself, this life here is fani, it is transient, it is impermanent. So these are questions that I felt this ayah is prompting me to ask about my life. And look at this ayah when it says وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَذُو مَغْفِرَةٍ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى ظُلْمِهِمْ وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَشَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Your Rabb, your sustainer, is full of forgiveness for people for their wrongdoing, and your sustainer is also severe in retribution. SubhanAllah, the first time when I read this, the whole ayah, and I saw this part, I said, why does it say Inna rabbaka lashadidul iqab right after saying that he is full of forgiveness? Why does God tell us that he's severe in retribution? And then I realized, Alhamdulillah, this is Allah's rahmah. He knows me. If he had stopped at your Rabb is full of forgiveness for people for their wrongdoing, especially when we are in a state of ghafla, we are most likely to exploit this, not to our own benefit, to our detriment. We will exploit it and be lazier and don't take that aspect of life that looks to akhirah, that looks to eternity, that looks to the beautiful divine name seriously. And that is what life is about. Everything else is transient. Everything else is impermanent. Everything else is fani and has no meaning at the end, no value at the end. It's like you may have the most amazing achievements, but at the end, you're going to die. It's like multiplying everything by zero. It's going to be zero. So what makes life worthwhile is when it is connected to its source, when it's connected to akhirah, when it's connected to our Rabb. So that's why if it had stopped there and just said your Rabb is full of forgiveness for people for their wrongdoing, it is an encouragement. However, it can be misused, it can be exploited to our own detriment. So for our own benefit, Allah adds out of rahmah, وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَشَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. He reminds us that he is severe in his retribution. And here the retribution is organic. Let's say if I were a student in the medical school, and the teachers are very lenient, very compassionate, very full of forgiveness for students for their not attending, not doing their assignments, not showing up. Would they have done me good? Because at the end of the day, at the end of when everyone is graduating, when I show up, even if they're so kind as to give me a certificate, a diploma, saying, oh, Dr. Yamina graduated from this School of Medicine, it won't help me because I am not a doctor. I have no idea what a doctor does, how to be a doctor, how to deal with patients. I don't know. Just because I say I am a doctor or someone writes that I am a doctor, it does not make me a doctor. So it is, if they don't warn me from the beginning that, yes, we are very kind and very compassionate and very helpful and very forgiving. However, this is the condition. If you don't do the work, you won't get the result. That's it. And this is what Inna Rabbaka la Shadidul Iqab. His Sunnatullah is such that he created things such that there is justice. He is just, and everything is created with justice, with balance, with, yes, there is compassion for forgiveness. Compassion and forgiveness require justice. They require that I be warned of the reality of what I'm getting into when I'm not doing the work, when I'm not surrendering. Just because I call myself a Muslim, a surrenderer, it does not make me a surrenderer if I don't surrender. If I never did the surrender, if I never even thought about what surrendering to God means. Like, you're not born, I'm not a surrenderer because my parents were surrenderers or because I call myself so. That's only the beginning, and I'm supposed to do the work. So I found this, the first time it was like, why is it so? And then I said, subhanallah, look at the rahmah, look how beautiful, look at the balance. So when in a state of ghafla, I don't want to talk about they, I'm taking that to us now, to me. When in a state of ghafla, we take ni'mah, we take the blessings and goodness for granted. We don't question it. Like it's all fine. Like we take it for, that's how it should be. But when things don't go the way we want them to be, when there is hardship, then we feel abandoned and we feel humiliated. And it says in the Quran, وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانًا. When God tries him by restricting his rizq, his provision, he says, my Rabb has humiliated me. Rabbi ahana, ihana. Why does he say so? Why do we feel like abandoned? Like, where is God? Where is, when I am in a situation that I don't like? Because now he is forced to admit his dependence on his Rabb. He is forced to see his reality. And our reality is needs and weakness and total dependence on our Rabb. Even for breathing, which we often take for granted. And the person who is in ghafla doesn't like it. That's why he is in ghafla. We say we don't choose ghafla. Yes, but by default we're choosing it. If we're not choosing to live intentionally, consciously, with awareness, then without admitting it, we are making a choice by default. And we don't like it. He doesn't like it and he feels humiliated because he never understood and appreciated the meaning of his needs and how his needs connect him to his Rabb. He's been busy pretending he's his own Rabb, as though. And that is why he doesn't value his ajz, his faqr, his vulnerability, which he sees as a source of shame, a source of disgrace. And when it is revealed, he feels humiliated. Because those who appreciate their vulnerability as the means through which they enjoy the blessing of their Rabb, If we didn't have needs, we wouldn't enjoy anything. Nothing would be a blessing or nothing would be a nahma. And the classical, simple, clear example is food. Food is food and ni'mah because we have hunger. It's not a static ni'mah sitting there. It's only, if I had no hunger, food wouldn't be food for me. So our needs are actually what makes us enjoy the ni'mah of our Rabb. And it is what makes us connect to our Rabb and know Him as the Mun'im, the giver of blessings, the provider of blessings. And so these people, they consciously choose to be grateful to their Rabb. And they consciously prostrate in surrender. That's one of the meanings of prostrating during the Salah, is we are surrendering to our Rabb. So in times of hardship, these people, they're going to turn back to their Rabb because they know that He is the helper, He's their helper, He is their all support and comes from Him. And so they say, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. O our Rabb, our Sustainer, You have not created this in vain. You have not created anything in vain, even things that we think are bad because we don't understand. Yet, their purpose and meanings, because often their meanings and purpose are beyond our capacity. Limitless you are in Your glory, and actually here is Subhanaka Tasbih. You are above anything that is less than perfect. You are above injustice. You are above anything bad or evil. Keep us safe then from the suffering of fire. Remember those who had shackles around their neck? They were the companions of fire. Their own beliefs that the path they tread, it yields to fire. Fire, anything that burns our heart, that breaks never will satisfy our longing for eternity, for eternal bliss, for eternal peace. We'll never find it if we don't have that connection with the source of peace. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam, we say during the prayers, the salah. Oh God, You are peace, and Your peace is from You alone. You are the source of peace. Because they know, so when they are in hardship, they also turn to God. Because they know that everything is created for a purpose. And so they don't complain and they don't feel self-pity like the unaware. In the Quran it says in Surat Al-Ma'arij, which is Surah 70, starting from ayah 19, it says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. Verily, human being has been created restless. Whenever misfortune touches him, he's filled with self-pity and impatience. Like he wants it to leave immediately. And whenever good fortune comes to him, he selfishly withholds it from others. There you can see that he is not aware that good fortune, wealth, goodness, blessings are a gift to him from his Rabb. He thinks, I got it myself, so he's selfish, doesn't want to share it with anyone else. So is everyone like this because we were born like this? No. Except those who consciously turn towards God in prayer. إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ وَالَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. Except those who consciously turn towards God in prayer and who constantly persevere in their prayers, and in whose possession there is a due share acknowledged for such as ask for help. Anyone who asks for help, they share with him. And such as are deprived of what is good in life, and who accept as true the coming of the day of judgment. So these people who consciously turn to God in prayer, who hum ala salatihim da'imun, who are constant, they persevere in their salat, they have in their amwal, in their possessions, in their wealth, there is always a share for those who ask for help, for those who are deprived. And those people, who are they? They accept as true. Yusaddiqun, they confirm the truth, the Yawm al-Din, the day of judgment. They confirm it. They know for sure. They are certain of the day of judgment. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. And they, therefore, they stand in awe of their sustainers' punishment. So they don't say, bring this punishment if you're telling us it's true. Only someone who does not really believe can say that, because how can someone ask for punishment as a sign? Those who know, they don't. Because they are certain of meeting their Rabb, as we are told in the second ayah of this Surat al-Rad. So inshallah, this will be the beginning of an opening to the messages, to the rahmah, to the healing that this ayah brings to us, inshallah. And it will help us also shed light on the ayats that follow, inshallah. We'll reflect on those next week at the same time on Wednesday, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Yamina. Now it's time for questions. Anybody has any questions? We can take questions, and or anybody has any comments or contributions.
Actually, you can ask questions during, we always say, like, questions not only at the end, but it's nice also when you ask questions as soon as a question occurs to you, or a comment, or something to share.
Yamina, there's a Assalamu alaikum, habibti.
Wa alaikum salam.
There's, like, as you were speaking, subhanallah, like, but I held, like, it took a lot of restraint to hold myself. So you mentioned that we are looking into the ayat for the bayina, like, for a proof for us that divides. And you said, like, bayina, to prove for us, like, the difference between right and wrong, like, is this a fact or is this a perception, so that we don't actually, like, burden ourselves with all of those perceptions that become shackles. And last, I see how beautifully it connected with what you said last time, like when you introduced, like, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. So this Quran, like, it's introduced, like, Ramadan is introduced as the month of the Quran that has guidance, and then the second verse says again, an evidence, like, I like the word bayinat, evidence of two things. Yeah,
Bayinat is clear.
Yeah.
Clear sign.
So bayinat of huda. So bayinat min huda wal furqan, evidence of guidance, and then evidence of what you just said today, like clarification of the difference between right and wrong, or clarification between the difference between fact and perception. So like you're saying, if today you used to these two analogies. You said, like, if I look at the ayat about the people who are asking, why isn't evil coming quickly, and it's about them, it's not about me. I have forgot to ask about why, I have not done my work in asking why is this guidance for me. And then today also brought the second one, which is, okay, now I'm supposed to be looking as I'm reading, as if I'm finding now, we're supposed to be looking for two things. One, how is this guidance for me? And two, how is this a clarification between right and wrong? Because it says clearly, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. So you're going to find evidence in everything you read that there is evidence of guidance to you and evidence of a clarification between right and wrong. And I think maybe this could be our thermometer. Did we do it correct? Like, did I find evidence? Did I find guidance for me? Am I finding evidence for guidance for me and mankind? And am I finding evidence that shows me the difference between fact and perception, right and wrong? And if I find these, then I am then I have benefited. So I just think maybe we have an equation to use, Yamina. Like now we can ask these questions like, did you get one? Did you get two? Jazakallah khair. I found it beautifully connected with last week.
It's actually in when we start asking, feeling the gap between the perception and the facts, that's the need for guidance occurs. Because if otherwise I wouldn't feel the need for any guidance. And so even when I am reading the Quran, I won't connect to it as a source of guidance that transforms my life now, here.
So you said, what's the first question? You said, how should I know that I need guidance? You said, when I start questioning what? I didn't hear it.
Sorry, when you mean now or?
No, just now. You just said it right now. You said when you start questioning.
I said it is in the gap between the perception and the fact. It's when I become aware that my perception is not necessarily the fact out there, then there is an opening and a possibility for me feeling the need for guidance. Mm-hmm. Because yes, I can question it. I can become aware that my perception is not the fact. But so what is the meaning of the fact out there? I can only make up a new meaning. But what is really the meaning that only the creator of the fact can tell me about it? And that's when I start feeling the relevance of the Quran into my life. Otherwise, it remains distant. God remains distant. The Quran becomes like his Quran. It remains distant. I can read it all I want, but it won't transform me.
Yes.
Or it will transform me to the extent that I feel that need, let's say.
And I guess that's the part where we get stuck in, which is like, what is the meaning of this? And if we're saying it not in a complaining mode, like I think like if our hal, what is the meaning of this means I disagree with this, I dislike this is, I hate being in this situation, and it becomes open to, Ya Allah, what is the meaning of this? Like, show me what is beyond this. What am I supposed to do with this? Where is this leading me to? And now it becomes clear to me, why did the father of Joseph, why was he so clear about asking for Joseph to come back in spite of everything showing that he's not coming back? Because he was not connected to the changing situations around him. He was connected to the source that's non-changing. So even without the dream of Joseph, with seeing directly to God, as things change, he would still be praying.
He had that faith. Yeah. Alia, the way you said it seems like that's how it should be. He had that faith. He was connected to the unchanging. Mm-hmm. But in daily life, That seems very unrealistic, and we say, let's be realistic. These are the conditions. But those conditions are always changing. Anytime anything can happen, but we convinced ourselves, we called it reality, and we say, let's be realistic. And so we think that his hope is unrealistic. And that's what the people around him said. Like, he is deluded, they said. Again, he is again talking about his old delusion, because they are not connected to the unchanging source. Subhanallah, like how we can delude ourselves without, in the name of being realistic. And our what we call reality, our point of reference, is always changing, which just doesn't make sense actually, when we question it and reflect about it. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm thinking, like, what could be a good activity for us to use all this information in, like, if we could, for example, I have right now my father was just calling me before I joined the halaqa, and he was worried about passing away, and he was worried about where should he be buried. And that just saddens me and makes me want to, like, it saddens me so much. And I was trying to think of how can I help him through this period where he's getting, he's like, he's worried about where should he be buried, and he's worried about things that are burden to us, and he wants to be buried in a place that's not burden to us. And I'm thinking, like, with all of you, I'm thinking, how can I help him? And now I'm thinking maybe I'll call him again and say, Baba, like, Yani, think of how weak you're feeling right now, and just maybe connect with that weakness and use that as a way to connect more. I don't know what would I say, but I'm just thinking, I found myself engaging him into worldly things, and now I'm thinking I should not engage him in that, and try to engage him in seeing beyond the reality, beyond the material part of it, I guess.
I mean, his anxiety about his death makes sense. It's a sign. It's a sign calling him to reassess his life, to get ready to meet his Rabb. But if we have not been through that training, if it's all new, I don't know how to make sense of that area. So I think it's about arranging where to die and all these things, which will happen in a way or rather, they are secondary to the primary, the most important thing, which is to be ready for that moment. And your sadness is also an area to start praying for him. And I mean, it's not like this sadness shouldn't be there, like a believer shouldn't have sadness. No, but this sadness is something that takes me back to my Rabb, makes me seek help. This sadness is telling me how needy I am and how I need guidance and compassion and goodness, not only for myself, but for the people I care about, for everyone. We're so needy of help, and so start praying for him. I don't know if it's a good idea to immediately call him. First, let's ground yourself in that prayer, in that seeking help, and then let's see what Allah shows, how you can help him. But make the intention that you want to help him for his akhirah. Because in this world, he's worrying about this, but actually he's not really worrying about that. Someone will take very good care of him, right?
Yes.
Of where he will be buried and everything.
And mashallah, he mashallah has always been like someone who's been helping in the community, doing things for his village. Like there's so many things in his village that he has done solely with his own hands, with his own money, with his own time, all through the years. So he has, he has done a lot of that. I think it's his heart. I don't know how to help it. Challenge. Let's see.
So it's time for istighfar and attending to our hearts and making istighfar and asking that he attends to his heart as well. Because inshallah, he only has to tell them how and where he wants to be buried, and people will take care of it.
And he has done that already several times, but he keeps coming back to it. I think it's the hard part, connecting, like the istighfar and connecting with your heart. And I think, like you said, the anxiety, that it's, inshallah, maybe there'll be peace, no anxiety, inshallah, be peace. Inshallah.
And so maybe you can remind him about all the good things he did, and that is, inshallah, Allah made him help, so it is a sign that God is the helper. He will help him as well. This is always what we say about helping in the name of God, not in my name, is good news because it connects me with the source of help, the source of goodness. And so it brings back good news that when I can't help, still Allah is the helper. When I need help, still Allah is the helper.
And a lot of love. He always shared his love with everyone. So there's a lot of love, inshallah. God will give us all.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. This is Sharita.
Wa alaikum salam, Sharita.
May I say something to Alia?
Yes, please.
So Alia, I think from just a little that you've shared about your father and all the goodness and the giving that he has given to everyone around him, I think he's very clear about his relationship with Allah. What he's concerned about is leaving you all and how you will all feel when he's gone. He's worried about you all. And really what he's looking for is permission from you all that everything will be fine with you when he moves on. And so when he brings up where he's going to get buried, it's the preliminary opening of the difficult conversation where he's worried about you all, not the other way around, that he's thinking that you're worried about him. He's concerned about you all. He doesn't want to leave you in this pain and suffering and the missing of him. So the conversation that you want to have with him is that not like what he needs to do or what he doesn't need to do, but that you all will be okay and you all will benefit from all the good that he's done in his life for others and for you all. Just to give him the permission and the knowing that you are accepting this aspect of our life, which is death, and you in your belief in Allah. And I think the conversation may get even deeper with you all. But he's just in this space at this early stage of asking for your permission and knowing that you'll be okay.
It's a difficult topic. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, there's a book called The Final Gift. You might want to read it. It's by 3 hospice nurses. And they write their stories about being with the dying. And the dying people, they know that the end is near. It's the living people that it's hard to let the dying move on. And the book it's a very easy read, but it's a very powerful message.
How does it feel, Alia?
I feel it's me seeing beyond, and I've learned a lot of things from him, and there's a lot that he has given us, and that's will, that's part, I don't know, part of him is in every one of us, and we do what we do because he raised us. So I think maybe I did not think about speaking to him that way and showing him. He doesn't know who I am, what am I doing.
But before you speak to him, it seems that I understood from Sharida is before you can speak to him, You have to yourself in your heart accept this. Make peace with it. Make peace with him leaving this world, knowing that he's in good hand, and that you are also in good hand, that Allah sent his blessing through him, through your father, up to now, and now you understood that he was like, let's say, in a way, mirroring God's love and compassion and givingness, and that love and compassion and givingness will continue after your father is away, because it was not from your father, he was a channel among others. And so you are grateful to him and you pray for him and you accept that we will all leave. We are leaving all the time, actually. We're all in a state of returning.
Yeah, so Alia, share what you just said to us, who he has been for you and the legacy he left in you and your brothers and sisters, and let him know that his work was meaningful because of who you are and what you've done. And you might want to share what you've been doing in your community, and his eyes will just light up because it will be like the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, and he planted that seed in you to do good in your community. And from what I know of you, you've been doing a lot of good in your community, and he'd be proud of you, and he'd feel fulfilled that his duties and responsibilities to his family in the eyes of Allah has been, complete. Like, he'll feel closure. And your relationship, as you start talking with him and he with you and you're sharing with each other, the healing will occur in that space. But when we stay separate, we're always asking ourselves what's happening, what's going on, and we're trying to fix things rather than just let things be and be in dialogue.
And I felt when Sharida said there will be closure, there will be a closure in that cycle. Like when you share, inshallah, with him, your love for doing good, for helping, your love for, even your love for nature, you always share how, and your eyes are bright when you talk about how your father loves nature.
He was my teacher. He loves nature.
So when you share this with him, in you, he will see that his life was worthwhile, had meaning, and you will give him the opportunity to reconnect with his Rabb, that all he did is potentially in the name of God. You know, there is a hadith that if you forget to say Bismillah at the beginning, then whenever you remember, say Bismillah from the beginning to the end. So you will be giving him that opportunity to say Bismillah for everything, the ones he meant and the ones he didn't mean. Because here it says, well, Allah is full of forgiveness. So we do forget, but you are going to give him that opportunity to see the meaning of his life in your life, and inshallah that it was all Bismillah from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, it's great.
Through you.
Jazakallah khair. See, that was, now we have, alhamdulillah. This session was very, mashallah, blessed, full of blessing, and now I have an application.
Your dua and his dua. That's being answered through what Sharida. Allah sent the answer to his dua through Sharida's heart.
Yes, Jazakallah khair, Sharida. Jazakallah khair, everyone. I'm the one who seems to talk. I want someone else now to talk.
No, thank you very much, Alia, for opening up the session.
Well, thank you very much, Elia, for what you shared, I think. And this also remind us about like this life and death in this, and we will be inshallah praying for your father as well and for you. Anybody else wanted to add anything before we close the session for today?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the things from today's session was when Sister Yamina referred to verse 42:20, that talks about whoever desires a harvest in the life to come, they'll have abundant harvest, and then whoever wants the harvest of this world, then they may get something, but there is no share in the life to come. And I was touched by the way this was explained. As far as I understood it, the idea was that we want the akhirah, the eternal, then we get harvest abundantly in this world and the next, meaning we can be fulfilled and at peace here and there in after death. But if we want only the finite, the passing, if we focus on that, then we don't get, we may get something, but it's not going to be ever complete. Even in this world, we can never be completely fulfilled. And this is very helpful for me because that helps me focus. That part of me that's short-sighted and insists that just wants the passing, the instant gratification. When that part of me realizes that no, like even if I focused on the passing, the temporary, and completely blocked off eternal, or that part of me that longs for eternity, still the deal is very bad. It's a very bad deal because I cannot be even fulfilled in this short lifespan that I am focusing on. So that I found helpful among other things in today's class. Jazakallah khair. Of course, Alia's sharing was always, and your contributions were all helpful.
Well, thank you, everyone. Anybody else wants to share anything else? Inshallah, then we will see each other on next Wednesday morning.
جزاك الله كل خير. جزاك الله خير.